Hello everyone, and welcome to another video here on RPGs with Paddy. I'm Paddy. So today we're going to be continuing the new Game Master month, and this will be entry 4 out of 8 to prepare us for running our first game in our chosen system. There's still plenty of time to join if you want. Check out the link in the description. I will be documenting my progress here through Runequest, Trail of Cthulhu, and Numenera. But the website also provides guidance for Unknown Armies, Delta Green, and Monster of the Week. Don't worry if you can't keep up exactly to the schedule. You can use it freely. And it's always good to start it when you have the time to do it properly. I believe all of the posts will stay up on the website until the end of December, and then they will start again in January 2024. Anyway, as I said, this is task 4 of 8, so we're already halfway there. Good work. Today's entry is going to be mostly about the adventure or scenario we are going to run. So, let's get into it. So, here on the website, we can see we're going to talk briefly about creating your own adventure. And this is often one of the most satisfying and fun parts about being a GM. But for this course, we're going to be running published adventures intended for beginners. So this is great to get you started, and then you can keep going with published adventures, or you can start creating your own, or a mixture of the two. I think it's really fun both ways. Published adventures have usually been play tested a lot, and are of a certain quality usually, and creating your own allows you to flex your creative skill as well. So both of them are really good. Of course, when you're playing a published adventure, always feel free to change it and add in anything that you would like to add to it, because that makes it a little bit more your own. So basically on this website, they're going to talk about what things most adventures have in common. So there's usually a setup with some kind of hook for the players to get interested in it. Then there might be some conflict that compels the players to become involved. After that, we should have an outline for how the story is likely to play out. So this can be quite a rigid system. After A, they go to B. After B, they go to C. After C, they go to D. Or it can be more flexible and vague, saying, here are a number of things that might happen in the story depending on the player's actions. Generally, it's good to stay quite flexible because you never know how your players are going to react. And we want to give them the freedom to explore it as well. It's not just telling a story, telling your story, but it's collective, collaborative storytelling. After that, in the adventure, we should also get a kind of a set of encounters or scenes. And these can involve combat, traps, social interaction, exploration, anything like that. And finally as well, an adventure should contain information about the creatures or the characters likely to be met during the adventure. Down a little bit below that, they give points for what they think makes a great adventure. So they suggest there should be an element of mystery or a plot twist, or when you complete this, you reach your goal, it turns out that that was only the tip of the iceberg. There should also be a story element to it. It's not just a random bunch of encounters, but it has a story element to it. But it doesn't railroad the players. So railroading, if you're new to RPGs, is a term you will come across a lot, which is similar to what I mentioned above, where basically the players' choices don't matter. It's going to go, A is going to happen, and then B is going to happen, and then C is going to happen. And there's no choice there. It just happens, no matter what you try and do. Even if you think that sounds like a bad idea, how about we do this? It's like, no, you have to do that. That's called railroading, and it takes away the player's choice, basically. And it's as if you are just telling your own story. So we want there to be a story there but for it to be flexible enough that it can change based on the player's choices. And we'll go into that a little bit, especially in the Trail of Cthulhu version of this video. They give some great information, so check that out. Anything else? Yes, there's usually a variety of different encounter types, so that they're not all just combat. So there should be combat, there should be social interaction, exploration, just a variety of those, so that it's not just combat and then combat and then combat. And then finally, the last part they talk about is that it plays to the interests of the players in your group and also to the characters that the players are playing. So some adventures may be great for one group who love combat. It's a very combat heavy encounter. This group will love it. But another group might hate the adventure because they want to have more social intrigue. And equally, this social intrigue adventure that they want might be bad for those. So you have to kind of talk to your group a little bit and just get a feel and kind of set the expectation for what is going on here. Usually the first adventure that you play is usually going to be a one-shot that you complete in one evening or one session. And usually you can be fairly free with that because the players are also learning it for the first time. But ideally, you would include a variety of combat, social interaction, exploration, other things like that. And then you can get player feedback on what parts did they like, what would they like to see more of, and what parts did they not like, they want to see less of. Certain things like combat, especially in Runequest, combat is a little bit more complicated. And the first time players go through it, it might be a little bit, it might drag a little bit, it might seem a little bit too complicated. So you want to make sure that it's not just the growing pains. If they say, I don't like the combat in Runequest, for example, make sure that it's not just the growing pains of that as they're learning the system. So maybe try that a few different scenarios before you try to get rid of combat. Okay, so Runequest, our task for this week, is basically two parts to it. The first one is to read the first 22 pages of the World of Glorantha booklet, and that will cover kind of like grounding us in the world of Glorantha. And the second thing is we want to read pages 5 to 23, which is the full adventure 1 of A Rough Landing. So here we're going to learn a little bit about the world of Glorantha. I really recommend reading through this yourself, although it is not necessary for your first adventure. Don't worry if you don't understand all of it. I'm still learning I'm still learning this as well. It's very interesting to see how deep the history is and how much is going on in this world. You don't need to understand it all for your first adventure. So I'll be giving you the main points of this, but I've highlighted a few places where I will be reading directly from the book because it's worded very well or it's something I don't know enough about. Okay, so I'm just going to read the very first section here because it gives a good overview. Glorantha is a world made by the gods but shaped by the deeds of mortals. Magic is a part of everyday life and mythology is the basis of reality. Your adventurer is a mortal, destined to die, but through luck, courage, cunning, and sacrifice can become a hero or even a god. Your adventures might start gritty and realistic and become fantastic and mythic, only to return to gritty realism. In Glorantha, people hold allegiances to tribe, city, and cult, not to abstract alignments or ideologies. Although humanity is the dominant species, their dominance is due only to the quarreling of the elder races, the elves, dwarves, trolls, and others, who still rule large parts of the world. Glorantha's main theme is religion and the magical relationships between humankind and the gods. The gods and goddesses are real, and through their followers and cults, they play an important part in most major events. The sky, earth, air, water, darkness, and moon have powerful deities associated with them, as do powers such as death, fertility, movement, stasis, illusion, truth, disorder, and harmony. There are also countless lesser deities associated with things as diverse as cats, cows, boats, vengeance, and volcanoes. Glorantha is a complete universe. It is self-contained, and from its myths to its moats, it must be taken on its own terms. It is filled with strange and distinct gods, cultures, and creatures, both familiar and fantastic, and players everywhere are enthralled by the unique features of the setting. Okay, so now I'm probably going to go through just kind of high-level comments on the rest of it. Basically, bronze is the predominant metal, not iron. Magic is very important, as is religion. And each village or town or city has a leader, usually with religious connections as well. The gods are present and can help with day-to-day tasks of their followers, but the gods rarely oppose each other directly, apart from the gods of power, which we'll get to a little bit later. Most people and most societies follow multiple gods. Temples are usually the most powerful place in any settlement, and they have a lot of knowledge. They can train people in magic. They can be a second home for their followers. And mystic sprites called whiters often protect temples. So this setting is similar to Bronze Age Earth, but with huge amounts of magic, which changes it drastically. There are also very strange creatures like talking ducks and baboons, flying bulls, and sentient fish, among others. So the bronze mostly comes from mixing copper and tin, as normal, but it can also be formed from the bones of gods that died in the Gods' War, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Iron is the most prized metal, but wearing it, certainly its untempered form, can make it difficult to cast magic, but equally it can also give some protection against magic being cast on you. All pure metals can be enchanted with runes to give them extra capabilities, extra magical properties. So then runes, because runes are so important, I'm just going to read this section as well. The runes are a key feature of the world of Glorantha. They are cosmic archetypes, the elements, the powers, conditions, and the forms that make up the universe. An adventurer's affinity with different runes affects their magical potential, personality, and even characteristics. The runes are the source of the gods' powers and drove the cosmogonic cycle known as the Gods' War. The elemental runes are commonly conceived as being arranged on a wheel, where fire or sky is overcome by water, water by air, air by earth, earth by darkness, and darkness by fire or sky, before the wheel cycles again. Power runes are inherently conflicting polarities such as fertility and death, movement and stasis, harmony and disorder. Neither side is good or bad. Their principles are merely opposed to one another. So after that, we get 3 pop-out boxes detailing 3 of the different types of runes. So elemental runes here, power runes here, and form runes here. And a little bit later, the 4th one, conditions, comes up just there as well. So that gives us some a visualization of the runes, and which I think is really cool for players, and also like a little description of the different runes involved as well. So magic is very, very important, and it can sway a battle. Even it can turn a hopeless rout into a reverse victory. The gods are also very important, and you have to choose very carefully which cult your adventure will belong to. Membership of a cult grants you some of the god's power, a very small amount, through rune magic. And the cult can also teach you less powerful magic called spirit magic. In return, you have to worship and sacrifice and act in accordance with the cult's wishes. So after this, we get a small little breakdown of some of the most important gods here. So we have Aldira, goddess of the woods. We have Argan Argar, goddess of the surface darkness, especially trolls. We have Babister Gore, and I am butchering all of these names, I'm sorry about that. The avenging daughter, who is connected to revenge. We have Chalana Aroy, the healer. Daka Fall, the judge of the dead. And if you watched it, I met him in my solo quest when I almost died. We have Ernalda, the Earth Mother, and closely connected to the elves. We have Yurmal, the trickster. Humact, the god of death. We also met him in the solo quest. We have Isaris, maybe? The speaking god. This is the god of trade, roads, the messenger of the gods, and mostly worshipped by merchants. And the cult language here is called Trade Talk, and it says this is the closest to a common tongue in all of Glorantha. We have Keeger Litor. Maybe. I should just decide on how I'm going to pronounce them anyway. Kind of mother of the trolls anyway. Then we have, I'll come back to this in 1 second. I'll come back to this in 1 second as well, but the list of gods just continues here. Lankor Mi, the knowing god, connected to laws, scribes, history. Magasta, the Lord of Waters. Marangor, the Earth Shaker, again, mostly about Earth. The Mostal, the Maker, which is kind of about machines and that kind of making things. We have Orlanth, the Storm King, and we met him already in the solo quest, but he has many titles such as the Master of Storms, Death Wielder, Bringer of Light, King of the Gods. Then we have the Red Goddess, who is a moon goddess, and the Mistress of Time, the Sister of Chaos, and the Lurker upon the Veil. So the Red Goddess here and Orlanth here are, at war, basically. They're kind of each other's enemies. After that, we also get the Seven Mothers, and these are mothers to the Red Goddess. This is also these two, the Seven Mothers and the Red Goddess, combine to make the official state religion of the Lunar Empire. They were our enemies in the solo quest. And these are strongly tied to the cycles of the red moon. And actually it says, just as a kind of an interesting side bit, 3 of the mothers are male as well. So the name isn't, gender specific as well. After that, we have Storm Bull, which is untamed animal power and passion. We have Waha the Butcher, who is the son of the Storm Bull. And then finally we have, Yelm, the Imperial son, who was in conflict with Orlanth during the God Wars and was slain by Orlanth. And then I think resurrected. We'll get to that a little bit later. And finally we have Yelmalio, the bright god. And Yelmalio is the bright sun that brings light but not heat. Sometimes an enemy and sometimes an ally of Orlanth. Okay, so just going back here, we can see these are the runes associated with the various cults. And again, it gives us the name of the deity, the runes, and a little description about that as well. And I think this can be really cool for the players to get into as well, both discovering and also then using them as well. And just jumping back here as well, we get a little description about the elder races. So these are kind of like non-human races that existed, before, and were kind of, they're still here now, but they're kind of here in smaller numbers than they were. Their civilization kind of declined significantly in the history, which we'll read a little bit later. But just going through these briefly, we have the Aldriami, who are elves, but not elves as you know them. They're kind of closer to plants than mammals, and they worship Aldira, and they hate dwarves. So that's kind of consistent as well. You might already know that. After that, we have dragon newts, who are the descendants of dragons, and they really want to try to ascend to dragonhood again. They have their own unique magic and are quite secretive as well. Mustali are dwarves, but they're kind of a little bit closer to machines, and they live deep underground and they hate the elves. Merfolk are water-living, air-breathing creatures, as you might imagine. Trolls have a matriarchal society. They avoid sunlight and they can eat and digest anything. And there are many different types of trolls, such as dark trolls, great trolls, Mistress Race, trollkin, cave trolls. But I think in general they like to fight as well. And finally we have Brew, which we don't get a lot of information on. But basically, these are creatures of chaos. And we'll learn a little bit more about chaos later on. They're vaguely humanoid, but each one is distinct, and they are incredibly brutal. Okay, so now we'll get into some of the unique things in Glorantha. So hero questing is where mortals try to bring back some of the old magic to the world by reenacting mythological events. Failure in this attempt is very bad for not only the participants, but also for their cult and their community. And a hero is someone who went on this hero quest and was successful and has now gained extra powers. And so they will be extra powerful in that world, but ultimately a hero's role is then to fight in the hero wars. We don't learn about that really today, but maybe we'll learn about it in one of the future ones, or just by reading more about it as we learn about Glorantha. So, clan loyalty is absolute. You must respect the judgment of your chieftain or your leader, and your actions will reflect on your clan and your community. So you can't just go around being a murder hobo. Well, you can, but there will be consequences to it. Pretty bad consequences as well. So just a couple of things I want to read directly here as well, because I think they are quite well worded and pretty important. So ideals and motivations. Heroic adventurers in Glorantha are often driven by powerful emotions and their spiritual and religious impulses. They have strong feelings about their world and are tied into the ongoing and eternal cosmic conflict. In Runequest, this is represented by rune affinities and passions that give significant bonuses and abilities. The Game Master should always ensure that players have a say in the behavior of their adventurers, but players should also accept that high passions and affinities risk being weakened through contrary behavior. This does not result in an adventure being forced into a mold, nor is it the intention of the system to take away the player's ability to make decisions for their adventurer. The system simply makes sure that the adventurers act in ways that are consistent with the runes and passions that drive them, even when that is at a cost. Even when there is a cost. An adventurer without deep passions or strong rune affinities is weak and at a disadvantage compared to the passionate adventurers that throw themselves unreservedly into the hero wars. So that's a really a good way. When you're creating your character, and I haven't created an original character yet, but you do have to think quite seriously about your rune affinities and your passions, and that I think will really help you roleplay that character. Sometimes in other games we talk about our ideals and our motivations at the start, and we think, oh yeah, that'll be great for role playing, and then sometimes we just forget about it as well, and we just role play the same way we always do. So I think that's very good, basically. You don't really level up in Runequest. Instead, you train for the various things that you want to learn. Using your skills successfully, you'll tick the box, and that gives you a chance to level up. So the more you practice something, or the more you use a skill, the more chance you have of leveling up. And also your cult will allow you to learn new spells, or you might be able to learn them from other cults as well. So just one more important thing here as well is time can pass quickly. In Runequest, the assumption is that one season passes each time the adventurers have an adventure. In little more than a month of playing every week, a game year has passed. After a real year, the adventurers may be a decade older. A long campaign may span a generation or more. So what they say here is that you're part of a community and you will have other obligations as well. So this is kind of explaining why time passes. Like you'll be going off on adventures and then tending to your community obligations as well. So in Runequest, the combat can be deadly, as you may have seen in my solo quest. And it's designed to be both gritty and heroic alternatingly, or simultaneously as well. The money in Glorantha is basically you will be using silver lunars or Ls, which is a silver coin. A copper coin is worth 1/10 of a lunar, so 10 copper coins is 1 silver lunar, and the copper coin is called a clack. A golden wheel is made of gold, and it costs, or it's the same as 20 silver coins, the Ls. But basically, I think most of the time you'll just be dealing with lunars. The trolls also have an interesting iron one as well. Is it iron? Sorry, it's lead. Sorry, the trolls have an interesting lead one as well, and sometimes they eat it, and sometimes they use it as a weapon. So just two interesting points here. One is about sex and marriage, and then the rest is about the world. So Hjort's laws, an ancient document stating the laws and customs of the Hjortling people, recognize 4 sexes: female, male, neuter, and both, and at least 6 genders: female, male, Vingan, Nandan, Hellering, and none. I don't know a lot about this, but it might be somewhere else in this starter set, or else it'll be in the core rulebook as well, where you're making characters. Unmarried sex between adults is not frowned upon, regardless of the sex or gender of the parties. Because sexuality is open, the marriage oath is significant. Marriage among many Gloranthans is a bond between participants and their clans. The marriage terms negotiated between the parties and their families. So it's a really, really big deal, and especially at the end, since marriage is sanctified by divine oath, violating that oath is dangerous. So it's something very serious to undertake. Now, about the world that we live in, Glorantha is not a globe, but instead is a slightly bulging, squarish lozenge, the shape of the Earth Rune. The Earth Rune is kind of like a square. It floats upon Shrammax River, the primeval ocean that encircles the world. Between the earth and the sky is a turbulent realm of the air gods. Underneath both earth and water is the dark, silent underworld. Beneath the sky and air, and sitting on top of the earth, is the middle world, the realm of mortals. It has a northern and southern continent and many islands. So I'll just show you this picture here so you might be able to understand a little bit. This is the earth that we live on. And then we have like the area of water, we have the sky above, and we have the underworld below. So the sky itself is an off-center bowl, rotating about the pole star which marks its center, the only stable point in the celestial dome. Beyond the sky is the sky world. At night the stars show where the magical denizens of the sky world peer through to guard their followers below. Similarly, the underworld is populated by immortal creatures as well as by evil dreams and by the souls of the dead and unborn. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. Again, I wouldn't worry about it too much before your first game. But yeah, that's it there. I think it's interesting to be like, oh, wow, this is like a really, really deep history and fantasy setting, basically. So Dragon Pass is probably one of the main key regions, and I think that's where we'll follow most, if not all, of our adventures. And we'll see a map of it down below as well. But Sartar is the default homeland for the adventures that will be set here. This is ruled by Kalir Starbrow, who we may have met before. In the solo quest, you almost certainly did. And Sartar has recently been liberated from the Lunar Empire. Ezralia is the center for Earth worship. Its largest city, Noche, is threatened by wolf pirates, and the people here generally consider themselves to be very civilized, and they set the style standards in many lands. The Graze lands, there it is, are grassy lands inhabited by the Pony Breeder Society. Prax are barbarian nomads who live to the west of Dragon Pass, and there are many different tribes. So the kingdom of Lunar Tarsh, so there's Lunar Tarsh and Old Tarsh. This is the kingdom of Tarsh that has accepted lunar rule from the Lunar Empire, and Old Tarsh is where they haven't accepted that as well. Sorry, my Adobe Reader crashed there again. So then we have a little bit more information just about the smaller ones there as well. You can kind of read that to yourself. But here, I'll just switch over to two-page view as well. Unfortunately, it's slightly mishandled there for my one as well. So here's half of the map, and here's the other half of the map. So now we get a little bit of myth and history as well. When the gods were creating stuff, it was called the God Time. Then Umath, the primal heir, came and destroyed the peace, causing the gods' war. Orlanth used death to kill the sun god, allowing darkness to take over. So then the unholy trio, which was Ragnaglar, Thed, and Malia, they let chaos loose, which was basically destroying the world. Different gods, formerly allies, became hostile towards each other, and each was trying to save a piece of the dying world. Then the 7 Lightbringers managed to rescue the sun god, and then the darkness was banished. That's when recorded history really started, with the Dawn Ages, where the elder races were prevalent and all races kind of worked together on something called the First Council. But then some people got dissatisfied and irritated and started a more warlike Second Council. And this led to the birth of Gbaji, maybe, the chaos god, bringing about 50 years of war and pretty much subduing the elder races. Like they're still in existence, but really they were kind of like on par with the humans, and now the elder races are pretty minority now. And this brought about also the end of the Dawn Ages. From this came the Empire of the Worm's Friends. This kind of was a civilization that lasted for about 500 years and had close ties to the dragons. So after 300 years, they formed the Third Council, but they didn't have enough magic to protect everyone and keep everyone happy, so there was a revolt by the Dragon Newts. Within a century, the humans turned against the Dragon Newts, and then humans started plundering right across the world. But when they got to Dragon Pass, dragons from across space and time came to their ancestral home to defend it and defend its purity and its sanctity. And this was called the Dragon Kill War, because of all of the dragons killing people, not because of lots of dragons being killed. So Peloria is to the north of Dragon Pass, and the cruel Camarnian Empire tried to conquer Peloria and wanted to extinguish the last connections with the sun god. But 7 desperate hero questers managed to revive a dead goddess, the Red Moon, and she was reborn into the Red Goddess. After living in Glorantha for a while, she ascended to the heavens, and then she became the mother to the ever reincarnating Red Emperor of the Lunar Empire. The Lunar Empire fought kind of all around, and then when they fought down towards the south, I believe, to the north, not important, they were very surprised to see Dragon Pass was populated again by the kingdom of Sartar. And so the Lunar Empire kind of kept attacking them, and despite initial defeats by the Lunar Empire, or the Lunar Empire was initially defeated a bit, the Red Emperor did manage to capture the Sartar capital in 1602. In 1613, there was a semi-successful rebellion, but to kind of quell this, the Lunar Kingdom decided to build a temple to the reaching moon to strengthen their power and to kind of put down this rebellion and future rebellions. But they never actually finished building it or fully conquering Sartar. So in 1625, they were about to finish the temple. They were just consecrating it. But then the Sartarites somehow summoned a true dragon underneath the temple, and it devoured the priests. So soon after this, Kalir Starbrow started liberating parts of Sartar and started calling herself the Prince of Sartar. And so basically that's the core information that we're getting here. Obviously you can see this is just a tiny little piece of the world of Glorantha. And to me anyway, it seems really, really interesting and exciting, and I want to know more. The only thing I would say is, two things. One is, I wouldn't rush too quickly to go out and look up all the information. Similar to what I said in the Trail of Cthulhu videos, is the goal of the Game Master Month is not to overload you with all of the information. It's just to kind of get the core information that you need to run this first adventure. The most important thing is running your first adventure. Once you've got that, then you can kind of start building up in the areas that you want. But one of the core ideas is that you never need to know everything to run an adventure. And of course, the world is yours to play as you want. So any changes you want to make, feel free to do it. I can't remember what my second point was. Oh, yeah. Don't feel under pressure if you don't understand everything here. I don't. I definitely don't understand it all. But it's starting to get an idea for it. And as I play and as I start running sessions, I'll get a stronger feel for it and it will make more sense. So here we are with a rough landing. And just before we start, these are 4 kind of core concepts that Runequest wants you as the GM to kind of impart onto the players. The first one is that combat is dangerous and not something that should just be rushed into. Passions such as honor and loyalty are very important in the game. Social commitments and connections are critical to survival, and not everything is as straightforward as it seems. So this is a starter adventure and takes place right after the events of the solo quest, the battle at Dangerford. So I would definitely try to get all of your players to have played the solo quest to have a feel for how the game plays. That's also fun as well. And this adventure is recommended for a group of 3 to 6 players. You can now hand out the pre-generated characters to the players and let them review the character information and then get them to introduce their characters to the rest of the group. It certainly advises using pre-generated characters, but you could have them create their own characters. I would advise for the first game, just let them use pre-generated characters. It allows them to learn the game without too much confusion about setting up their character. Once they've played through this adventure, then they will know a little bit more about what to do, how to set up their character. But this whole adventure booklet is kind of designed for all of these pre-generated characters, and there are some ties to it as well. So anyway, reading through this adventure will take quite a bit of time. It's long enough, but actually it plays very well. And the reason it takes a little bit longer to read through it is because it gives you a lot of support as the GM for each different scene. So you should be pretty well prepared. Instead of going through all of the details, I'll give you the core outline of this adventure. So you arrive in Johnstown and there are some trolls. Sorry, just before I mentioned that as well, there is some nice read aloud text here as well. First of all, this will be a bit of an introduction to Glorantha if people haven't done that before. And then this is introducing the first scene. So read aloud text, I think, is very helpful, especially for new GMs, especially for the first scene. It can really just help you kind of ease into the game and get the juices flowing. Those first paragraphs where you're introducing it to the characters, you're like, okay, I got this done. I'm ready for this. So basically, yeah, you will arrive in Johnstown and there are some trolls rioting a little bit in the North Market. The players can try various approaches. They are asked to help sort out the problem, and they can try out various approaches: fighting, negotiating, intimidating, or even just kind of stepping back and saying, "Hey, it's not my problem." If they don't participate through different roles, they could lose points in their honor or their loyalty because they're not being honorable, they're not being loyal to Sartar. And in this place, let me just find it. So there's the trolls. By the way, don't forget trolls and actually all creatures in Runequest are probably a little bit different from what you're used to seeing. But here is the quote I wanted to find. And it says, "It is important that the players understand that they have ultimate control over what their adventurer does, but if they choose to act against their adventurer's passions, those values will suffer." And this is very important. They can decide to play however they want, but those decisions, those actions will have consequences. So basically, whatever the players decide to do, the town guard will eventually turn up and kind of sort it out. The trolls will be arrested, and the players will also be arrested if they fought. In the cell, they can talk to the trolls who have now got over their drunkenness and have kind of calmed down. And the players can understand the reasoning of the trolls. Basically, they were paid to fight, but the person who promised to pay them died, and no one's paying them now, basically. So either way, whether they joined in the fight and got arrested, or whether they were just onlookers and didn't participate, they need to turn up to trial the next day. So the PCs can defend themselves using their different skills, and possibly they might want to defend the trolls too, saying, hey, the trolls have a legitimate grievance. But this scene kind of underscores a few things. One, they can't just go around fighting in cities with no consequences. And the second thing is it also will introduce you to a number of key personalities in Johnstown. So, for example, we meet the City Rex, or Orngerin Holdfast, and there's also Georgera Latish, who is I can't remember her title actually, but I think she might be anyway, it doesn't matter what her title is, but yeah, she's a key NPC anyway. And we meet some other important people as well. For example, Joe Myth is he's one of the priests in charge of the markets of the city. So all of this will introduce them to the very important city of Johnstown in Runequest. It comes up a lot, and I think all of the community content is supposed to be situated in Johnstown. I'm not sure about that actually, but anyway, after the trial, there will be some consequences based on how the player characters represented themselves. But the City Rex will also ask or order them, depending on how it went, to sort out something in the countryside for the Milani tribe. Basically, some farmers out there have not been seen in the markets for several days, and the Milani representative in Johnstown suspects bandits, but it could also be the Lunar Army who are retreating after the Battle of Dangerford, or it could have been Milani tribal conflict as well. He can give information about the different farmers. So here we are here, the different farmers who are there, and then ask the player characters to go off and just kind of see what's going on. And then we get this nice map. So here we are in Johnstown, and it shows you the route that you would probably take. Go up here to get the ferry, go to the Boranini River crossing, and then on to Mayornear's Landing. This is the farm area here. So basically, once the players arrive at Mayornear's Landing, I'll just show you a quick map here. But basically, the farms are empty with the doors kind of hanging open, and any kind of basic weapons or farm tools turn weapon are strewn about the place and broken. Some cows still remain, but it's clear that any other smaller livestock, such as pigs and chicken, are gone. The reason for this is because the cows were too big for the creatures that they're dealing with, the scorpion men, to take away. But obviously the players don't know that yet. So the players, the characters can attempt the players can attempt some different roles here, such as scan, searching, intelligence ones, and track. And yeah, there's some information given here about what they would find out. But basically just ask the players what they want to do, and then based on what they say, ask them for relevant roles. So just one important thing here is number 2, which is Minesta's farm, is kind of the key area here. This is Minesta's farm, obviously, and it also has a temple, and this is where all of the people are. It includes the local people, Some of them are already dead, I think, but it includes the local people and some people who are passing by, and it might also include some lunar soldiers as well. But all of the people have been captured by scorpion men, and we get a nice picture of scorpion men below, way down here. So that's what they look like. Okay, so scorpion men. So they've been captured by scorpion men, and they are being kept in the temple's main hall or in a basement below. The scorpion men are also working with a crushed kid, which is kind of like the big villain of this, or the big enemy of this adventure. And we'll get to that right at the conclusion. But this is very similar to what they said on the New Game Master Month website, whereas it's nice to have a bit of a twist in the story. So the twist that's going to come up here is that everything points towards, oh, it's just a group of scorpion men. But then it's not exactly what you thought, and the crushed kid will come up. I have no idea if I'm saying that right. But basically, as they're going around and kind of inspecting the various places, if the players haven't, at some stage, discovered the tunnels, make them all have POW rolls, and if they fail, they'll be right next to kind of a hole falling into a tunnel, and they will have to succeed on a jump roll or they'll fall into the tunnel. The tunnels have been created by the crushed kid, and the tunnels are difficult to find your way through. Like, it's pretty mazy as well. If they just keep going, then they will come into a fight with one or more scorpion men. And fighting in the tunnel, because of its tight quarters, is a little bit harder. But anyway, while all the exploration is going on, while they're checking all the different farmyards, build the tension and the paranoia. The scorpion men are smart and patient, and they don't want a full-on attack. They want to maybe ambush the players. So use different listen or scan rolls from time to time for the PCs to get quick glimpses of the creatures. Eventually, though, it should come down to a fight. And when that happens, the scorpion men are pretty weak, but they do get 2 attacks every round. And the second attack is a poisoned stinger attack. So don't take them too lightly. And again, this is showing to the players that combat in Runequest can be very dangerous, and you don't always just want to get into combat. It's not kind of as easy. Say, for example, combat in D&D 5e is not so deadly. Even like large creatures like giants or dragons are not that deadly, really. Whereas in RuneQuest, combat at every level can be lethal anyway. So while the fight is going on, make everyone make a listen roll, and those who are successful hear kind of a rumbling. And soon after that, so maybe another couple of strike ranks or another couple of rounds through the battle, the ground will burst open, and at the bottom of the resultant pit is the crushed kid. But I would recommend not saying the name, because that won't mean anything to most people, I think. Just describe it as it does in the text here, which is a grotesquely bloated, 6-legged, crab-like horror. Its body filled with a giant 3-pointed, toothed mouth from which whips a long, prehensile tongue. So just to understand that, this is a mouth which doesn't have just 2, like the top and the bottom, but it's kind of like got 3. Well, I only have 2 hands, so I can't show you. But here you can see there's one side of the mouth, a second side of the mouth, and a third side of the mouth. So describing it like this is great. We also get some information about it, like what it does. And for example, they have paralytic bites, can spit an immobilizing paralytic poison at their prey, and the whip-like tongue causes a disruptive surge of energy that can destroy limbs upon a successful hit. So I would say, don't just explain this to the players. Let them kind of figure it out. But maybe throughout the fight, one of the captives can shout out key bits of information, such as don't let it bite you, or watch out for its spit, or anything like that. That comes across more naturally than just explaining, the key points of it to the players. If when the ground bursts up, someone falls into the pit, they will have to dodge, and a successful dodge means that they manage to avoid the mouth of the creature, but now they're in one of the side tunnels, and then the creature might chase them through the tunnels, which will really create that sense of horror as well. Now, if the players are really suffering and it looks like they're just going to die, you can bring in the cavalry. So there can be a wandering band of trolls who are looking for a fight. And again, this matches up with the trolls in the town, kind of showing that trolls really just like fighting. And so they will jump into, not so much to help the adventurers, just for the sake of a fight. If the adventurers helped the trolls kind of get out of the court battle, then this could be the same trolls again who are then actually trying to help the adventurers. So now we find out about the captives as well. We find a little bit of information about the captives. Most of them are the local farmers, but there are also some lunar soldiers. And it's up to the PCs what they want to do with the lunar soldiers. They can set them free, they can kill them, they can take them prisoner, or they can ransom them back to the army. The ransom will be 500 lunar silvers per captive, so it's quite a significant amount. Or you can hand them over to the city guard and they'll do the ransoming, but then the city guard will take a 50% cut. But obviously it means you don't have to do any negotiations. Yeah. So after that, you can basically wrap up the story by going back to Johnstown and getting a reward from the city Rex. He may have some more tasks for the characters if they want, or equally if they want, he can help them set up their own business if they want to make a fresh start in the city. Okay, so that is all that we have for this adventure. I think, yeah, it's a nice kind of straightforward enough adventure. And it imparts a lot of the core concepts of Runequest as well, that your consequences of actions, that you should probably be adhering to your different passions, that combat can be quite deadly and you don't always want to go into it, and other things like that. Okay, so that is going to be all for this video. If you liked the video, don't forget to leave a like and possibly subscribe to the channel. If you're going through the Runequest adventure, let me know about it in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Okay, bye.